nice to be here with you today. I couldn't quite hear what Melanie was assigning me to do.
Talk about the history of the building. The history of the building,
Oh,
of our building.
this is a historic building. Reverend Mitchell used to work here when it was owned by the Sears Company. But I like to tell the story because I think it's important for us all to know more about our own history. In 1848, this was the site of the largest uprising during slavery. And when you read about slavery, you never hear about how the slaves freed themselves. But this was 1848. The slaves, those who had been enslaved, tried to get to a little boat, a little scooter, and we have a replica here. It's called the Pearl, and it's behind the chicken. So you can go over there and see it. It is the replica of the little boat. They made their way to 7th and Potomac. They got up to the Potomac trying to get into the Underground Railroad. But the winds weren't strong enough, so the boat rested. And one of the men who had carried the slaves to the ship told where they were. And so the owners sent 100 posse to gather them and bring them back. And they were brought up 7th Street to 7th and Pennsylvania Avenue, where you are now sitting. Across the street, where there's now the National Archives, was the base of what was the Central Slave Market. And those young people included 2 little girls, Emily and Mary Edmondson. They were 13 and 15 years old. They followed their 4 brothers into the whole attempted escape. The attitude of the owners was that these had had it too good. They were here because they were working in the White House, in the home of the Congress people, in the government offices and like. And they said they had it too good because they were maids and chauffeurs and cooks and the rest. So therefore they sent them to Louisiana to be sold so they could go into the fields. When they got there, the 2 little girls, one of them cried, and so they were sent back here with some of the others because they said they were weak. The interesting thing is that the father was free, and I think this is one thing that you understand when you hear about slavery. The father was already free. The mother and the children were not. And so the father went to Brooklyn, New York, to ask a Presbyterian minister to help him free his family, his children. The minister held a slave sale, but he reversed it, and he put it this way: how much will you pay me for the freedom of Mary? How much will you give for the freedom of the other one? And so on. And so he won their freedom. His sister, who was Harriet Beecher Stowe, used the story of these little girls to really expose the realities of slavery. And you know, she wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin, which turned out to be just that. It was a major turning point in the abolitionist movement. The sad thing was that the abolitionists who had attempted with them were thrown into jail, and here at 4th, right across over in what is now Judiciary Square, and one of them died in the prison. The two girls were sent, with the help of the church, to Bldg College. And when they returned, and when they got there, the youngest one died because she had contracted tuberculosis in a slave places where they had been thrown. The older girl graduated and returned to Washington and joined Myrtilla Minor in establishing, who had established the Minor Teachers College, so that she became a part of Minor Teachers College. And I think, to me, it is very significant that as we have met the Edmondsons, who are members of Asbury United Methodist Church, the descendants of those children, how much they recall the stories that have been told through the years of what happened. But for me, it has been very significant to learn that Washington was really built on slave labor. And I think all of us need to bear in mind the countries. It was very interesting that the date they were brought back, April the 14th, 1848, was on the date that they were celebrating in Paris, in France. That was the day they were celebrating Bastille Day. And on the floor of the Congress, one of the senators said, over there they are mobbing for liberty, and here we are mobbing for slavery. And they were the strongest speeches made at that time. And therefore, I say, and well, we are all saying, that this building stands on hallowed ground, and that it really belonged to us because our ancestors saw to it that this land was protected. And so we say, it's been already paid for. We just had a chance to reclaim it. But the important thing we feel is that it's now fully paid for, and we would hope it would never leave the hands of African Americans. And one of the nice things about it is, and I say this for all of the presidents of the United States, no president can be inaugurated and get from the capital of Pennsylvania, from the capital of Pennsylvania to his house without passing our house. Of African kings, queens, and educators, inventors, and others who were made slaves. So that I never like to call them slaves. They were people who were enslaved because they were not slaves when they came here.
Amen.
And I'm glad that we can all be here together. And I hope that for generations to come, there will always be those who remember our history. And also, I want to thank you for being here, because I have to say, it was Mary McCall Bethune who had the dream, and she always said, she said, I want to see my women with a strong presence in the nation's capital. And I think to be between the Capitol and White House is a strong presence. Makes it all the more significant when you are here, because this is what she would have, us coming together as sisters and joining together. And I'm glad to see so many young ones here.
Amen.
Being a part of this. Because people look at me, I'm 97 now, but it wasn't always old.